Hey folks, Quilly here, and today I'm super excited to showcase the latest expansion for Age of Wonders 4 called Eldritch Realms, because apparently all the games we're playing these days are getting super freaky deaky. Big thanks to Paradox Interactive for sponsoring this video and making all this happen. Be sure to check the description box down below for more information. The game, or the expansion I should say, is available today as of when this video goes live, assuming I've timed everything properly. And it is available for PC, PlayStation 5, or the Xbox Series. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to go through the character creation screen just so that we can poke around at all the new stuff from that aspect. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to load this sort of early to mid-game save that I've got going on so we can look at some of the traits in effect, as well as the new realm in the game, which will make sense as soon as we go in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a new realm, although it's worth noting on that previous screen there is some new story stuff. So as we go through the screen, keep an eye out for these little tentacle systems or symbols. This is content from Eldritch Realms. So we've got a new story and everything like that, which I don't want to talk about because, I mean, that would be spoilers, right? So we're going to create a new realm, we're going to customize, and the first thing we see, so the landforms are the same, the climate is the same. Down over here, however, for the inhabitant traits, we do have a new trait over here, Uroth's Grasp. The people in this realm have fallen under Uroth's influence. Racial Marauder units have the Gloomstrider and Umbral Flesh transformation. All free cities have the Initiates of the Umbral Abyss or Masters of Corruption trait. So let's further mouse over. I love how, like, all games these days are doing these nested tooltips. I mean, holy cow, it took a long time first, and it seems so obvious now in hindsight, right? But how long did we as gamers operate without these stupid things? Anyway, Gloomstrider, tier 7 major trait transformation. So this is all Racial Marauder units have this built in. Turns target race into Umbral beings, which grants them the Umbral Demon unit type, floating, fast movement. Now, this is going to be a transformation that we're going to have access to over the course of the game as well, but it is freaky that the Marauder is going to have that. And then the Umbral Flesh is a tier 3 minor race transformation, which has a very interesting trait, Umbral Malady Immunity. If we mouse over this, we can see Umbral Malady over here. Umbral Malady, unit suffers -1 vision range, cannot regenerate hit points on the world map, loses 6 HP at the end of each turn on the world map. Now, this is related to the Gloom Terrain type here that you can see. Gloom Terrain is normally only found in the Umbral Abyss. Units except Marauders within Gloom provinces suffer Umbral Malady, so they're decaying over time, and cities suffer -10 city stability for every annexed Gloom province within their domain. So if you're playing a normal racial faction, having any Gloom provinces inside of the borders of the city is going to be terribad. Very major influence. You can see here, while Gloom... so this is units with Umbral Flesh. If they are in the Gloom terrain, they're immune to that Umbral Malady, and they get bonus morale, and they regenerate hit points quite nicely. Cities of that race, of Umbral Flesh race, gain +2 knowledge income for each province of Gloom terrain, and they don't suffer from the city stability penalties. So obviously we're going to get a real dichotomy on the world map between factions that have this Umbral Flesh and factions that don't. That one's going to want to spread the gloom and another one's going to want to avoid it. Hero units gain Gloom Shepherd, while the unit's the leader of the army units gain Umbral Malady immunity, which is very good because these are race transformations. Oops, sorry. If I mouse over the Umbral Flesh again, right? This is a race transformation. So if you have armies of mixed race compositions, then as long as you've got a hero that's got the Umbral Flesh upgrade, because it's from a race that has this trait, then that entire army will be protected from the disease. They won't get the bonus morale and regeneration, but they won't get the Umbral Malady, which is pretty important. Right, so we might want to click on that, for example. I don't think there was another one. Primal Dispute over here, of course, is from Primal Flurry. Oh, no, there is one more. My bad. Over here in the Misc traits, which you can have up to 4, there is one new miscellaneous trait, which is Umbral Abyss. So this gives the map a new layer. So in addition to the regular surface map and the underground map, this will also add an Umbral Abyss. So says, the Umbral Abyss creeps over this realm, opening gates to an eldritch dimension and its invading horrors. An additional map layer called the Umbral Abyss is added, which can be reached through the Umbral Gates. Enter the Umbral Abyss for forbidden treasures at a great risk. Infestations and dwellings from the Umbral Abyss will creep into the surface and underground, spreading gloom. Units in gloom terrain will suffer from Umbral Malady, which we have been talking about. So we'll throw that in there. That's going to be okay. I think don't think I've forgotten anything else. I think, oh, no, there's one more thing. Of course there is. Toll of the Seasons. That's right. I remember this one. This realm is affected by the Toll of the Seasons, where mysterious fae folk emerge from the mist to attack cities of the unwary. So Toll of the Seasons happening is guaranteed to occur during the mid-game. So this will guarantee a specific event. And now I'm pretty sure that it's there. So we're not going to delve into what this is. That's something that people can discover on their own. I think I've now covered everything that has been changed for the realm. Now, advancing over here, of course, we've got new leaders and new factions, including some pre-made ones that we can take a look over here. Oneron, Eri, Nazru, Nikareth, Rotchek the Disturbing. Yeah, we're going to look at this new body type in a little bit. So we do have that, and there are also 2 new species forms, but we'll look at that in just a scooch as we go and create our own custom faction. So we've got the Sirens over here. Now, I believe, unless I'm wrong, and I'm never wrong, this is a throwback to a previous race that used to exist in Age of Wonders that hadn't featured in Age of Wonders 4 yet. So they're back. But I'm most interested, I think, in the Insectoids. Look how crazy these guys look. I love it. The Siren, I should actually address, their default traits. So their starting traits are Empowered by Magic, which existed in the game previously, Arcane Focus, and Adaptable. Now, the Insectoids, they also start with Overwhelm Tactics, which was in the game before, but I believe the next 2... Oh, it doesn't actually show up over here. Hold on, I'll have to check there. So I may have been wrong about the Sirens and their traits. If I go and edit their traits, I'm just going to check real quick. Yeah, none of those have a new symbol. That's what I thought, but I started to doubt myself. Whereas if we click on the Insectoids... I'm sorry, are neither one of their traits new to Eldritch Realms either? Oh, I didn't realize that, because there are new traits. So if I deselect a few things, if we scroll down, we can see this one. I think it may just be this one trait. Let me double check. Because I know there was a new trait because I used it when I did my racial setup here. The Death Beetle mounts. Mounted units are more common and gain a Death Beetle mount. So we get bonus hit points. Of course, I think a lot of the mounts do have bonus hit points, right? Like if we compare, the Dire Bear, the Dread Spirit mounts, actually the Dire Bearers have quite a few extra hit points at the plus 10. This only got the plus 5, but it does give them the Pestilent Escape ability, which is kind of neat. So adjacent units sustain damage. This unit moves to target Hex and enters defense mode. So very easy and flexible defensive moves. And yeah, our ruler as well will start with a Death Beetle mount. I will say there's a bit of an anti-synergy here if you're looking to use the new form of our people. Yeah, I know not all traits are spent. I guess it'll let me continue, but I'm just going to click on whatever. Again, we're not going to use this as is here. We're just going to move forward. Culture-wise, no new cultures. I think the vibe I went for, I was trying to decide between Dark and Mystic. I decided to go Mystic because I didn't want to play with the Undead focus quite as much this time around because I've done that more recently. So in my setup, I went Mystic, and I think I did just pick Attunement. But here, what defines their society? So we've got a new one over here. Umbral Disciples. The shadows whisper, and the disciples listen. Cities may build the Altar of Marching Gloom. So this is a mana income bonus building. Start altering terrain to gloom at 1 province per turn. This extends a radius equal to the city tier. Close those tooltips. Terrain will gradually revert if the altar is destroyed. It counts as a conduit, so it is indeed a conduit replacement. Must be built in an acquired province. Unlocked by Eldritch Pack. These boons can be purchased from Umbral Dwellings by reaching an Eldritch Pack with them. So Umbral Dwellings is also going to be something new. So Umbral Dwellings are a type of dwelling inhabited by Umbral demons that can only be found in the Umbral Abyss. Umbral Dwellings are always considered pure evil and will have positive relations with other evil empires and negative relations with good empires. You cannot assign a Whispering Stone to them. So they work a lot like the Free Cities, in a sense, but they have some pretty significant mechanical differences. So to improve your allegiance, you will be asked to make sacrifices during random events and via the boost allegiance action. So it's not the same sort of diplomatic system where you're boosting allegiance by giving them Whispering Stone and those normal methods. Instead, there are going to be trade-offs. I believe you're going to be asked to do things like sacrifice money or mana or population from your cities. And yeah, upon reaching an Eldritch Pack, you can purchase unique spells and other bonuses to benefit from Gloom terrain. Umbral Dwellings, they convert their own territory to Gloom. They cannot be vassalized or conquered. Instead, they're destroyed upon being captured. Umbral Dwellings are led by unique Umbral Tyrant heroes who cannot be recruited or converted. I like this because it's going to add more variety to the sort of free city system by not making them act in all the exact same way. So, we'll click on that. We can see, of course, it also changes our look of our people. As per usual, they get kind of cool and dark and freaky. I think that's the only society trait that was added in here. And so we'll just click on something else. We'll just click on Devout Vouchers over here to move forward. Let's talk about the tomes, because this is kind of a big deal. There are 3 new tomes. I thought I could mouse arrow to switch between them. Doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop. Oh! Click, click. Tome of the Tentacle. This is a tier 1 tome that is both Shadow and Astral Affinity, which is kind of nice, because that's... Are there any others? Did Primal Fury add one with a split? Oh, we've got a split here with Tome of Alchemy from Empires and Ashes. Is that the only other one? I think it is the only other one. So Tome of Tentacle and the other one have the twin affinities, which is really cool. Conjure tentacle mutations and creatures from the depths to restrain and constrict your enemies, keeping them right where you want them. Also love the look of this book, like 10 out of 10 art design. Conjure Tentacle is interesting because it's an immobile unit with hyper awareness. It can't be flanked, which is pretty useful for something that can't move. That seems useful. It lasts for 3 turns, and yeah, it just tries to smack people with melee strikes over here. It's a pretty basic little unit. I think one of the things that's interesting about this, there are other effects that I have noticed in the game that also then conjure these tentacles. So I'm not entirely sure. I mean, to be fair, it's a tier 1 spell. No one's expecting it to be incredibly transformative, I think. And I may be missing a greater strategic implication here. Maybe it's quite good in choke points, for example. But I don't see this in and of itself as a god tier spell. But I have seen some things that auto-spawn these tentacles, which does seem incredibly useful. This Constrictor is a new unit that is unlocked by the Tome of the Tentacle. It's a polearm unit capable of pulling in and restraining opponents. That I really like. You can see their pull ability over here. And it does do higher base damage than their melee strike, but it does have a... well, that's pretty good reach, actually. Dang. Target unit sustains damage, has 90% chance to be pulled to an adjacent space, become constricted for 1 turn. Unit is immobilized and takes 10 damage at the end of the turn. That, to me, is stupendously good. Cannot be used within the enemy zone of control. So, if you're already adjacent to someone, you won't be able to pull someone in. But otherwise, I mean, this just seems really, really helpful to me. Constricting Focus, so this is a unit enchantment, makes base magic attacks of enchanted units. I was going to say, what type is it? Yeah, Battle Mage and support units. Makes their base magic attacks get a 30% chance of inflicting Constricted. So we've already seen this Constricted, and this is going to be a theme that we're going to see actually in a few other things that I have noticed in my gameplay. So this is great, like just a free, I mean, oh sure, only 30% chance, but it's not bad. And that's, this is a 30% chance for a multi-attack unit. If this is a unit that only hits the 1 time, then the chance increases by another 30% over here. So yeah, it's not going to land every time, but it's a freebie Constrict that does bonus damage and stops people from moving around is really handy. Retaliating Growth is a unit buff spell. Target friendly unit gains Retaliating Growth for 2 turns. Base 60% chance to inflict Constricted for 1 turn with its base melee attacks. Again, we see this theme come up over and over. Unlimited retaliation attacks is actually really cool. Hyper awareness, so you can't be flanked. Defensive Masters always enters defense mode at the end of its turn. I really think this is a quite good spell. I think it's really nifty. And then Tendril Labyrinth over here. This is a new city structure. So you research this and you can build it in a city. City gains 10 gold. I don't know why, but sure, I guess it's tourist attraction. We gain an increased city stability. And when besieged, conjure 3 tentacles adjacent to the enemy units at the start of the battle. So this is what I was saying. We are going to see effects that auto-conjure those tentacles. So while I'm not sure how worthwhile it is to cast the spell in combat per se, and maybe I'm wrong and it's going to turn out to be awesome, the mechanics of these tentacles showing up as a freebie here on a city defense, I think that's really nice. And yeah, not a bad little building. City stability is really important, really valuable, and gold is something we can always use. So we would be selecting that to get started. The 2 other tomes we're going to have to take a peek at in-game. And we do have a new origin. So in addition to Champion and Wizard King, for the first time, we have a new form for our leaders, Eldritch Sovereign. An Eldritch ruler with powers beyond mortal comprehension. uses thralls to cast powerful ritual spells. So we've seen this mechanic, for example, with some of the necromancy stuff with the undead, right? Where you've got that soul economy to do certain things. Well, here we're gonna have a thrall mechanic. Thralls are manipulated or incapacitated enemies gained through battle, which can then be used in ritual sacrifice. Used as a currency for special ritual spells, gain a thrall by defeating enough enemies in battle or with spells like enthrall population. Lose a population in your city, gain 3 thralls. I suspect this isn't something you're going to want to use very often because population is fairly valuable, but this does give you an emergency way to generate thralls. You do gain them in battle. So when I'm going around in the early game and I'm booping little groups of monsters, like little groups of 3 monsters, I'm getting thralls some of the time in those combats. And I suspect with larger groups of enemies and maybe higher tier enemies, we're more likely to get more of them. But yeah, in the early game, I had no problems generating enough thralls to have some options there. Start with the Clairvoyance Ritual. So this is a world spell, reveals the closest undiscovered infestation or ancient wonder, and enthrall population spell, so we do start with that spell immediately. Eldritch Sovereigns have a 5 mana unit upkeep and cannot equip leg and mount items. This is why I said the Death Beetle thing is a bit of a anti-synergy with this new form. If you take this new form, you're going to start with the beetle mount, but you won't actually be able to equip it until you hire another hero and then give it to them. Eldritch Sovereigns have access to powerful hero and signature skills, which makes sense. You're losing 2 unit slots over here. Now, the mount items might not be the end of the world in a sense because there are other items in the game that already conflicted with the mount slot. So that's not so much a big deal. The not being able to equip leg equipment sort of sucks because, again, you're just losing another equipment slot. But you've got some extra skills that is being promised here. And then we can take a look at the cosmetics of this person, and you can clearly see why maybe they can't equip leg armor or have a mount. If we go and randomize, you can see our form can vary pretty significantly. Ooh, I don't know if I'd seen that one before. It's a good one for our insect species. That's quite cool. And you can see we've got a choice of these relics over here. We've got the Relic of the Mind, so this deals physical damage, bypasses enemy defenses, and can inflict delirium. This is an ability that the ruler will start with. Target enemy unit base 90% chance of being inflicted with insanity for 1 turn. Insanity is really good. That unit, for 1 turn, is uncontrollable and will always attack the closest allied target. Then if no allies in range, will attack enemies. So you inflict the delirium, or rather, you use delirium to inflict insanity on a unit, and it will then go and attack its own allies for a turn. It's really double duty, because you're taking an enemy unit out of commission for a turn, which by itself is highly valuable. But not only that, but they will attack one of their friends. And on top of that, it sunders their defenses and their resistances for 3 turns afterwards. Really good. We've got a 4-turn cooldown, but we've got that. Relic of Flesh here we could also start with. This will deal... This is going to deal blight damage, inflicts decaying, and poisoned. And then Eldritch Ritual is a hero skill that grants economic spells costing thralls. So we got a spell called Dark Knowledge Ritual, which gains a bunch of knowledge, and Mesmerizing Draft Ritual, which gains a bunch of draft for the city. And casting these will just consume some of your thralls. Instead of mana, I don't think it costs any mana at all, actually. Relic of Havoc has a long-range weapon that deals fire damage and inflicts negative status effect. I guess I could actually be mousing over these, I'm just realizing, for additional information. So we have the Fire Rebuke and the Fire Spike ability, and we also gain the Eldritch Phase ability here to teleport around, get a little bit more mobility, and the Relic of the Cosmos. So we start with the Relic of the Cosmos, a long-range weapon that deals fire damage, frost damage, and lightning damage. Indeed, we can see the split here of 666, different types, and then we get the Cosmic Rebuke and the Cosmic Spike ability as well. And then we gain the Astral Wisp Ritual, a skill that enables the summoning of Astral Wisps at the cost of thralls. We can see the ritual over here. I think, just gaining the skill gives us the hit points and resistance, and then we get the Summon Wisp spell, and then we can look at an actual Astral Wisp over here. It's just a tier 1 unit, but, it's fine. It's got the Cosmic Bolts for some very damage, the Astral Membrane here to help defend a little bit against some melee attacks. So there's our set of options, and of course we can manipulate the look of our races as well. Can I randomize you guys? I was going to say, it's not quite as evident, right? Because the races are mostly, a lot of their appearance is made up of their starter traits, and then later on their race transformations and spells like that. So they're a little bit more of a blank slate compared to the leader over here. And don't forget, you can set a personality for your leader when they act in an AI capacity as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a transition in here, and I'm going to go and load up one of my saves. See you in a sec. Okay, first thing, if you're like me, the most exciting part might be the new tomes. So let's take a look at that. We've got at tier 3, the Tome of Corruption. Just like our Tome of the Tentacle that we're looking at over here, it is a combination Shadow Astral tome. And here's what we've got. Umbral Incursion. This is a new world spell. Target enemy city loses a borderland province and the population is lost. Yeah, this is a real jerk-ass spell. I could only imagine how annoyed I would be in multiplayer if someone hit me with this bad boy. It also spawns an Umbral Nest infestation on the Lost Province. Next, we've got Summon Umbral Mistress. So it's a summoning spell, a mythic unit that can manipulate other units to do her bidding. 110 hit points. The Rack ability for a ranged ability, range 4. 4 different damage types, 3 damage types, and also inflicts a morale penalty. I've actually had a lot of fun with builds that really stack a lot of morale penalties on the enemies, and I find them quite strong. If target is enchained by this unit, this attack cannot miss. So enchained just means at the end of the turn has 30% chance to break free. Sure, if failed, it sustains 10 physical damage. So we've got Gratitude as an ability here. Always hits. Linked unit sustains 30 physical damage, ignores defense, and the caster unit heals 30 temp HP. Enchain Mine. Here's how we generate Enchain. Base 120% chance. Remember that the percentage chance over here does get lowered by the resistance of the target. So with anything's got some resistance, so there's likely going to be a chance that this fails, but it's a really nice high base chance over here. And yeah, chance of becoming Enchained, which we know can deal some sustained damage, but also combo us with some of their abilities. And then we got Fury over here. Target linked unit is afflicted by Insanity. So we're just talking about Insanity and how I think this is incredibly strong, right? Because while insane, the unit is going to be attacking allies. So it's worthwhile just as a way. This is going to take a unit out of combat against you. And as a bonus, it'll also go and hurt the rest of the enemy team. And this lasts for 3 turns. I mean, that's the entire combat. From my point of view, generally speaking. At the end of 3 turns, the combat is probably decided. Disables Gratitude and Surrender for this turn. That's the Umbral Mistress. We've got Gloomstrider over here. So this is a major race transformation, right? So what race can only have one major race transformation, so this is a big commitment. Turns the target race into Umbral beings, which grants them the Umbral Demon type. Bonus defense. Does lower their fire and spirit resistance. Gives you them the Curse Eater trait. At the start of each turn, unit loses 1 random negative stat effect and heals 10 temp HP from it, and you get the immunity to Umbral Malady. They're also floating, which is wonderful, and fast movement, which is also pretty strong. But this is the thing that the hero type that we're just looking at. Mounted units lose their mounts, heroes lose their mount and leg equipment slots. So while I really like that we've got a new choice for starting mount options, right? This Death Beetle. We can see now that there's a second tier of anti-synergy with that Gloom Beetle mount if you're planning on going down this tree of tomes, right, with the Tome of Corruption. Because if you choose the Beetle mount racial trait, not only does your character start with a mount that is free. Now, of course, you could choose that and then choose your hero character to be the standard, champion or the wizard type, and you would actually benefit from the mount. Whereas if you take the new type of form for your main hero, you would not get the benefit from the mount. But as well, if you take the Beetle mount racial trait, your race as a whole gains access to more cavalry units, except that if you then Gloomstrider them later on, they will lose that benefit. So keep that in mind when you're setting yourself up. If you want to explore the new Eldritch magic, you probably don't want to go with a cavalry focused set of racial picks because it's kind of sort of a loss. Doesn't mean you can't make use of cavalry units early on in the game. That's perfectly fine. And again, this is only one race at a time too. You can use this to transform other races you take over and leave your primary race untouched, but it kind of feels like you probably want to use this on all your species and sort of unify around this kind of vibe is what I'm assuming. We've also got the Throne of Insidious Whispers over here. This is a city structure, which gives mana income, world map casting points, so you can burn through more mana per turn to cast your spells faster. Combat casting points, you can cast more spells in combat. At the start of combat in this city's domain, all right, Quill. 3 enemy units have a base 90% chance of suffering insanity for 3 turns again, I really think this is quite good, and 3 turns is huge. Now, it's only 3 units, and they do have a chance to resist, and depending on their resistance, you know, it's going to be, but there's still very likely, even with high resistance units, there's a good chance you're probably at least going to get one of them, and that's significant, and could be up to 3. If unsuccessful, they're still stunned for 1 turn. Really wonderful, and it gives you mana along the way. Fantastic. Corrupted Boon, so this is a buff debuff spell. Target enemy units in a 1 hex radius lose all positive status effects. If a lost status effect has any status effects countering, then the unit gains a stack of that negative status effect. So, oops. Keep trying to point at things and move my mouse too far. Sometimes a status effect counters another. This means you can remove a status effect by applying the status effect that counters it. When a status effect counters another, it is not applied itself. And then finally, we've got Treacherous Reflection. Combat Summon spell creates a treacherous reflection of a target enemy unit. So it's a copy of another unit. The reflection dies when the enemy unit dies. The reflection gains the Umbral Demon unit type. Cannot summon other units. Can't target heroes, combat summons, and mythic units. But we're getting a cool duplicate of a unit over here. That also gains the Umbral Demon subtype, which just tweaks a few things. I don't know how much of this matters in the course of a single battle. The Curse Eater is still really nice. I don't know if the Umbral Malady immunity matters on the battle map. And so in this case, that part of it isn't so huge, but it really is interesting to be able to make a copy of something. Though, keep in mind, these are some pretty serious restrictions. So you're really only going to be copying some fairly normal units. That's Tome of Corruption. And then finally, where are my notes? Tome of Cleansing Flame, which is probably higher up over here. There it is, Cleansing Flame over here. So this is another tier 3 tome, but this is not Shadow and Astral. Instead, it is Order and Chaos. 2 opposed branches, really, but it's got them both in this book. Again, I really like the art for this book. I mean, you know, the OG stuff is also good. No complaints there. But there's something that to me feels a little bit special about this. I really like the sort of ivory white and then the blood red bandage around it. So utilize the zeal of your troops to bathe the battlefield in cleansing flame that punishes the condemned and blesses the faithful. So sort of a spell book that feels counter to the Eldritch stuff that is in here, which makes sense, right? We're getting a setting with all this Eldritch horror, but that's also going to bring with it ways to counter it, perhaps. Zealous Ignition. So this is a buff spell. Gain Zeal until the end of the battle. Zeal is bonus spirit damage and double damage against condemned units. If the target already has Zeal, it gains 3 strengthened. Enemy units in a 2 hex radius suffer condemned. So, you know, great bang for your buck there, right? So you condemn them, which is generally an annoying debuff to give them as well, but then it means they're going to take double damage from the Zeal. So we're getting a lot of your full setup over here. You don't need a 1-2 combo. It is its own combo at the same time. Then it also creates Cleansing Flames on the target hex for 3 turns. Units passing through or ending their turn on this hex. Non-Zeal or faithful units. So the units you're buffing with this are going to have Zeal, and your units might also have Zeal from another route as well, or faithful, right? They'll have one of these 2 perhaps from something else as well. So they're going to be immune to the burning, but everything else will suffer burning walking in here. Zeal or faithful units lose a negative status effect, so it's cleaning them up. And condemned units, which we are condemning by virtue of the spell, and probably other synergies happening at the same time, they are going to lose positive status effects. That, to me, seems like a really strong spell. I really like it. Pure Flame Staves. This is a unit enchantment for support and battle mage units. Makes base magic attacks of enchanted units 60% chance of inflicting condemned. Creates Cleansing Flames on the target hex for 3 turns. And effects are increased over here. So again, sort of building around that sort of combo with a few different ways of implementing it. This doesn't require that you cast any spells in combat. Just happens automatically. Although, I don't know. I don't know how heavy other people's later game units are in terms of support and battle mages. Usually I try to have at least one of each in my army comps. So it's not like this is going to be triggering for all the units, but I don't know, maybe you go really heavy battle mage units? I'm curious, leave a comment about your typical sort of early, then mid, then late game military compositions. That actually might be really useful to have a discussion about. A new city structure over here, Temple of the Pyre. Ignore income and stability penalties from being under siege. It's fine. I don't know how often I'm feeling like, oh, woe is me, my city is under siege and I'm losing. all this time. At the start of combat in the city's domain, enemy units suffer condemned. And I mean, that is still quite cool. That aspect is quite nice, and more fortification health over here. If the city is attacked, and it is nice to not lose this part, but the big thing for me is when the city's attacked, I want to make sure to win the defensive battle. Having the enemies start condemned is beauteous, and then the fortification health is also kind of handy as well. This, though, Flame Blessed Champions. This is a unit enchantment, makes base melee attacks of the enchanted unit 60% chance to inflict burning. If the target of 5 stacks of burning, creates cleansing flames. Effects are increased run period. Yeah, we see this all the time. And it affects the shock, polearm, shield, and fighter units. So you can likely are going to be stacking many stacks of burning. Getting to 5 might be challenging, because if you hit something 5 times, and it's not guaranteed to get a stack of burning every single time, right? So you've got to hit it many, many times. You might have other effects that are also inflicting burning, but to reach that 5 stacks might be a little tricksy. That being said, when it happens, we trigger the Cleansing Flame, which we know is quite fantastic. Consecrated Firestorm over here. World spell. Target non-friendly province that doesn't contain an ancient wonder. Its province improvement is raised. Enemy units in province sustain 20 spirit damage. For 3 turns when entering combat, all enemy units suffer condemned, and it creates cleansing flames on random hexes. So obviously a great spell to set up right before an important battle. You nuke a province, which pros and cons, right? If you're hoping to take over a city at that point, then you've damaged it a little bit, but you're just absolutely ripping through an enemy army before you attack it and set it up for some great bonuses on your side. And we got the Pyre Templar over here. This is a Zealous Polearm unit, which inflicts burning. So again, we can stack a little bit more burning auto-magically. We've got the Flame Cleave over here. But yeah, it's a cone attack with bonus to Cav. And the Pyre Cloak here, unit enters, you trigger this, unit enters defense mode, all adjacent enemy units suffer fire damage, all adjacent, so that's nice because you're doing damage while still entering defense mode. All adjacent units have a 90% chance to suffer burning, and you also create the Cleansing Flames over here. So we keep seeing that mechanic show up time and time again over here in the tome. Cleansing Flame Herald is, oh yeah, new skill unlocked. Flame Best Champions, more burning damage. Flame Herald's Consecration. All burning ground becomes Cleansing Flame. Oh, well, that's quite spiffy. I like that a lot. And the Pyre Shrine unlock as well. So it combos with foresters. Units get more rank. Counts as a forester itself. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Appreciate the gold. Please appreciate the draft. It is kind of nice. Okay, those are the new tomes. This video has gone a lot longer than I'd hoped for. Let's take a quick peek at another mechanic in a sec here. All right, I want to make sure to showcase the Gloom terrain before we ended the episode. Here's my capital, the Throne of Sprouts, which actually spawned next to an Umbral gate, and we'll take a look at the Umbral Abyss in just a moment here. But we can take a look and see this province. So this is a grasslands province, right? If I go and just mouse over, it's a fertile plains, in fact. But if I click on the improvement, we can see more details about this terrain. It is grasslands, it is rocky, and it is gloomy. Gloom terrain is normally only found in the Umbral Abyss. Units except Marauders, and we read this a second ago, within Gloom provinces suffer Umbral Malady, which is real bad. Cities suffer -10 city stability for every annexed Gloom province within their domain, which seems bad, but of course, we're sort of, in this particular game, I'm building myself around this kind of Gloom synergy. So yeah, I've got this. I haven't really delved too deeply. We can see it's only turn 26 over here, so it's still quite early and there's not that much stuff to develop. But we can see the terrain over there, and actually there's some more Gloom terrain over here as well. Yeah, some more Gloom over there, which I think I actually did myself. Yeah, because I built an altar of the Marching Gloom, so I've got that thing set up and it's starting to spread. But let's take a look at the Umbral Gate here. So over in the top right corner, we can see there are now 3 map layers, right? There's the surface layer, which I'm currently on. There is the underground, which we're used to seeing. And now there is the Umbral Abyss. So if I pan over to one of these areas, we can take a look at what this area looks like, which is very cool looking. There's all kinds of funky looking stuff all over the place. And we can also confirm that these terrains are all gloomy over here. But it can still be very well worthwhile settling down here, especially if you have an ability to either cleanse this terrain or a race that can embrace it. So it does look really cool. There's a lot of like these sort of like little islands that are separated from one another, although that may have to do with the map setup that I've specifically picked. But I think the purple look is fantastic. It's got some great flavor. So yeah, here's the gate over here where we transfer from one side to another of the map. So I've scouted out a few different areas. But anyway, that's it. That is the look at the Eldritch Realms expansion for Age of Wonders 4. I think it's really cool. I really like the vibe. I don't know. I'm actually not one of these people. I've never read any of the like Cthulhu stories, but I've always really liked to play games there. I own so many like Arkham horror board games and things like that. I've always enjoyed exploring that world, and so having those types of features, those types of vibes come here in Age of Wonders 4 feels fantastic. Again, thank you very much to Paradox for sponsoring this video, and again, do be sure to check the description box down below. There should be a link that'll bring you to the official page for Eldritch Realms, and you can take a look for more information there. Thanks for watching, folks. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.